And welcome to our another edition of Decision 2022 here, part of our local talk program. Robert Fountain, Democratic candidate for Granville County Sheriff. Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Good afternoon, Trey. I'm doing well. I hope you're doing well as also.
I am fantastic. I appreciate you for coming in here to the studio. We are recording a presentation at this time by way of our YouTube channel. All this will be on our website at nextdoorradio.com. And this is part of the Decision 2022. So let's kind of start by really introducing who you are, your story, where'd you grow up, that kind of aspect of it, and we'll go through there.
A lot of times people ask that question, where you come from. And first I start from who I am and whose I am, right? First, I'm a child of God, a faith-based man. And God's still working on me. To this day, he's still working on it, bro. But originally, I'm from South Boston, Virginia, by way of Mayo, Virginia, and the tobacco fields close to Virginia. That's where I did my high school education in South Boston, graduated from Halifax County High School. I initially went to St. Augustine's College fresh out of high school and found that I was not ready for that. I found that I was still immature, didn't have the structure and discipline that I needed as a young man going out on your own at like 17. I think I did a semester there, and then I left, came back home, started working. There used to be a plant called U.S. Plywood that turned into Georgia Pacific. And I was there in the finishing department where they made, I guess you call it particle board. So
Okay.
I was doing that. I was pulling tobacco. I was working at McDonald's. I think I had 2 or 3 jobs at one time because I wanted to stay busy, because idle time is the devil's workplace, right? So we stayed busy. We stayed busy. And then I said, okay, I'm ready to go back to school. So I went to Virginia State University. Again, it was too much freedom. I like structure. I like discipline. So I think I did a semester there. December, at the end of the semester, my sister came home and she said, you ever thought about going into the service? So December 4th or 5th of 1985, I went to a recruiter, signed a 6-year enlistment that day.
Oh, wow.
And January 2nd of 1986, I was inducted into the United States Marine Corps. I was not a graduate out of military boot camp, Marine Corps Recruit Depot, Paris Island. Hoorah. I left there, came home for 30 days. Then I went to the Military Police Academy in San Antonio, Texas. And I still was a person that had a passion for the community and the streets. So we would go out and be in the communities, seeing the underserved communities, hanging around with kids, trying to encourage them to be like me, to change their lifestyle, to get some structure, get some discipline. Word got out what I was doing in the communities in San Antonio, Texas, back to Camp Lejeune via the Sergeant Major down there. And I was recruited while I was still in Military Police Academy to come to North Carolina and to go directly from basic training, BLET you could call it, go there straight into undercover drug operative for the State Bureau of Investigations, Naval Investigative Service, Camp Lejeune Military Police, Onslow County Sheriff's Office, Jacksonville PD, and I went straight into the undercover life then. And after being undercover for a while, and they were shutting down operations, because I think we did like 360 indictments, came out of about a 6 to 8 month undercover operation where we targeted civilians, military personnel, buying and selling drugs, equipment, stealing military stuff, selling it at pawn shops and stuff like that down in Jacksonville. We then, they plucked me up and said, hey, we're going to put you and sign you to the SWAT team at Camp Lejeune. I said, for what? They were like, you need to have some type of protection when you're out, because you were dealing with so much stuff that we want to make sure that you're safe. I stayed in the barracks, and I worked with the special operations team, or the SWAT team, and then eventually I became the non-commissioned officer, one of the NCOICs of the SWAT team. I was an entry man, point man, sniper, every discipline of a SWAT team I was engaged in and participated in those teams. Then time came for me to leave the country on a NATO security operation. I've been to Honduras. In fact, I got left in Honduras. We were down there doing a maritime prepositioning ship offload and security operation because some Air Force guys had got kind of ambushed down there. So they sent a force down to do some work. And me and a fire team got kind of left. And the rest of the group had left. Iceland, Reykjavik, Iceland, Norway. So we did a lot. Came back and went into the military police role in the civilian capacity, where we enforced laws up and include misdemeanors to felonies, child abuse, rapes, everything that a police officer did, we did. But the only difference is everybody that we dealt with, 90% of them were trained killers. So that's a difference when you start looking at, okay, yeah, being a deputy is a hard thing and your life is in jeopardy 24/7. When we dealt with a different breed of people, that at a moment's notice, they could be more efficient at disarming techniques, threat assessments, and neutralization techniques than your average citizen. So we can't ever minimize the level of training that military police guys have. So I did that for 6 years. I played football. I got recruited by some colleges. My last year going out, I was going to try to go to a small school, Huron College. I went out to Colorado, but I blew my knee out that year. And I decided to go out, continue the law enforcement thing. I actually applied and got accepted to the Durham Police Department's academy. First night of school, they turned it into a reserve academy. I didn't want to be a reserve anything. I wanted a job. So we went into corrections because corrections was hiring. I was in 92. I started working at Polk Correctional in Raleigh before it became Granville Correctional in Butner. I stayed there about 3 years, and then I kind of got tagged to look at doing some undercover work in Washington, D.C. with the FBI. And long story short, I was a cooperating witness as they targeted individuals in D.C. that brought drugs back and forth from D.C. to North Carolina, and right across the street from Howard University, actually. 14th and Euclid, Georgia Avenue, Silver Springs, Maryland. We did that for a while, and that's where I met my lovely wife. When I was working undercover, she was an FBI task force officer for Durham PD. So we started dating while I was working. She knew who I was. And after a time, you can become the person you're supposed to portray sometimes. You may lose empathy, compassion for people. And once I saw myself becoming the person that I was portraying, I had to let it go. And I came back, went back into the correction system, worked my way through the ranks, all the way up to an assistant warden. I was the gang coordinator, first gang coordinator for all 100 counties of probation and parole. I was a certified probation officer. I was a gang trainer and trained a trainer for gang investigators throughout the state. I developed the validation process for probation and parole. How do we validate inmate gang members? And then I took over all 55 prisons as the gang investigator, supervising all validations for all 55 prisons in the state of North Carolina. And then I wound up at the fugitive extradition operations manager. So anyone that was wanted or was suspected for crimes in North Carolina and were captured in another state, we would go arrest them in their jurisdiction, fly them back to North Carolina, drive them back to North Carolina. And I had probation officers working under my supervision. I had correctional lieutenants working under my supervision. And it was a great time. And my last trip, I went down to Puerto Rico right after the hurricane in 2018, and they were rebuilding it. It was a great time. And then I left. I wanted to dedicate time to my family because I've been gone a lot. I wanted to dedicate time to the community because I knew I was going to run for sheriff. And I had some business opportunity in the corporate world to do some other things. So we said, hey, we did 25 years. Let's punch out. And let's go ahead and make this commitment to the community. And even when I ran against Brent, the question was, if you lose, are you going to stay involved? And for 4 years, we've been pretty much staying involved with the community, giving back, doing fundraisers. You've helped me on some situations where we've done some things, and we've just made it about the community from a holistic standpoint of helping when we can, and then making sure that we stay with our fingers on the pulse of these communities. So when I become sheriff, it's an easy transition for me doing what I was doing as a servant to the community to serving as the sheriff as a servant leader. So that's kind of the thing. Married. I have 3 children. My daughter works at a law firm. My son is a college junior who just got a paid internship with Ocean City Police Department, which he'll be going up there to become a police officer in May. And I have a son in Ohio who works FedEx, and he's a manager there. And like I said, my wife was a Durham police officer for 30 years, and she's my bride, and she's the boss of my life. That's what
I was just about to say that. I said we did a talking off air. We were doing a yard sale down there in Wake Forest, and I said, let me go talk to my boss, which is my wife. So again, Robert Fountain, Democratic candidate for Granville County Sheriff, joins us here, part of our local talk and the Decision 2022. To kind of circle back in Mr. Fountain, talk about on your website. You talk a lot about trust. What does that mean to you?
Trust and integrity mean kind of the same thing. They're parallel tracks for me. Trust is having the decency and courtesy and honesty to always be truthful no matter what. It is also doing the right thing even when people aren't looking. And when you are in the wrong, having the fortitude to say, I was wrong. We did something that we should not have done, and making not just maybe a family, but make sure the community knows that either I, through a decision I made, didn't do my due diligence and take the advice and counsel from my peers, my people that are surrounding me, because ultimately it's my decision. But trust is doing the right thing all the time, never lying, never betraying what you are sworn to uphold. That's trust. Simple.
Fantastic. And Robert Fountain joins us here, Democratic candidate for Granville County Sheriff's. Also on your website, you talk a lot about giving back to the community and doing a few different things here. We mentioned a little bit, I've DJ'd and performed and done a few things that some of your give back to the community, feed the block. So we appreciate that. But what does it, in your own words, what does that truly mean, giving back to the community?
We sow seeds of responsibility to change minds and influence behaviors. So that's just like we opened a community library in the Raleigh Road Housing Authority, right? Nobody knew that we donated thousands of books to the kids, right? So if we sow seeds of responsibility, we make sure we're training the next generation not to get into the criminal justice system. So giving back is pouring things that we went through as a people, as you as a servant leader, as a minister, as learning to, hey, you don't have to travel the path that we took. Here's a better way of doing things. So giving back is not just from a financial standpoint. It's not from an educational standpoint. It's a holistic approach of saying, hey, here's a better way of doing things. And sometimes we have to even look. I took a bunch of kids who had never been outside of their little block where they lived. They go to school, they come home, they go to school, they come home. And one day my son was like, we were watching this show called The Amazing Race. So my son was like, man, I wish I could do that. And I had some kids that maybe want to do something like that. So we would started talking to some other brothers and some other community stakeholders and say, hey, why don't we start doing this type of thing with our children at 7, 8 years old, right? To give them a vision of something outside of the little blocks that they live in. So it turned into kids had to plan trips just to get to Charlotte, had to go to a basketball game. They had to take care of everything to teach them how to become young men, to make decisions. And my son, I'm going to blame him, He planned out the whole trip, to the bus, to the train station, and to the get to Charlotte and where the hotel was at 7 and 8. We helped him, but he never figured out how we were going to get from the train station to uptown Charlotte. So I made him walk, and it was like 4 miles with his bags, and he was a little guy. But those things are what we do to sow those seeds, right? So, and giving back is, we have to do things at the sheriff's office when there to start teaching young men to be men, and even reaching out to some of these single moms and to figure out how we can help with their kids, right? The young men. I think Unwrapping the Gift is a great nonprofit program who gives back in that sense. But we got to teach young men, hey, it's okay to say that you don't know how to be a dad. And we have to work with them from the criminal justice standpoint, because some of them have been justice served individuals, to show them this is the way we can do things. And those community partnerships, that's how we pour back. That's how we give back. And it's part of my DNA, just being a servant.
So regarding your platform, part of the Democratic candidate for Granville County Sheriff, explain what that platform is.
It's evolved, and it continues to grow. Initially, it was community collaboration and crime reduction. But then we started looking at those partnerships that we had to build in. So the community was us being servant leaders in community policing. That's what the community component was, being in the community, changing the response time, making sure that we were engaging the communities, making sure every community has a different pulse. Every community is different. So the communities, we have to make sure our thumb is on the pulse of each community and do better. The collaboration was the thing. We've never had the sheriff and the chiefs of police sit down, work together, meet together, and have these relationships, or other stakeholders. So the collaboration is, we want to start the chiefs meetings or the sheriff's meetings like quarterly or monthly, initially monthly, so we can work with these mutual aid agreements to help each other. We look at these task forces. When people say, what's this task force you want to build? A task force is having the community stakeholders and mental health, social services, justice served, and any proactive people that want to stop people from going to jail. We need to have those task forces put together as part of this collaborative effort to heal relationships and make us better and safer. And then the crime reduction is just getting ahead of the game. If I'm present in the communities, those deputies are my face. They can reduce the crime by being present. So when you're not there to prevent something, you're always going to be reactive. So we have to be proactive in our approach to community policing, to law enforcement, and to crime reduction. That's the three. But then it started to grow, and it's still growing because I learn a lot. I learn from everybody. Even this past weekend with the response time, we kept talking. I learned that, okay, we need a substation in this northern part of the county to where the response times are better. I learned that we need to work with the first responders in the fire department, because we wouldn't talk to those guys. What can law enforcement do to help you guys as first responders and firemen? So we have some strategies we have to put in place to help the firemen. We have to work with the EMS. I don't look at being the sheriff as something that's pigeonholed. I look at it as part of the first responder family, and we have to be part of the infrastructure of our community. Not a second thought. We have to be a priority, because if you're going to grow and you're expecting 9,000 homes to come into this community, when do you start working on bridges and roads? It should be after you start talking about jobs for the sheriff's department, EMS, fire, medical, and those things. So we just have a different approach. I know it's a lot.
Yeah. So you have the opportunity to be elected Granville County next sheriff. Yes, your first 90 days in office, what would that look like?
Everybody's going back to the streets. The only way you're going to repair the public's trust is to put people on their boots on the ground. So with that, the first 90 days, we have 7 different county commissioners. I'm going to go to the county commissioners. I need 2 representatives from each one of your districts to be a part of my community advisory board. That builds a relationship with those individuals in the community, with the county commissioners who hold the purse strings, and with me. So once we do that, we then, myself, I and a couple other people in management go and do ride-alongs as field training officers with the deputies to find out what works for them. Because I may have a vision, but they may have a solution. So then I have to incorporate their vision into my solution so it works together. And I learn from the ground up. So we go in, we're going to do an audit. They're doing the accreditation process now. Even as we speak, they're about to contract a private company to come in and paying them $73,000 to help with the accreditation process. I don't agree with that, but it's part of making it a standardized agency. But that's their decision now. When we get there, we want to look at those policies and bring different ideas because we're close to it. So the fiscal responsibility is upon me to make sure that we're good, we're straight. The policies are there and the accreditation's in place. So working with jail services, bringing in a new vision of jail services. We've had too many issues from inmate custody deaths to a sex escapade going on that cannot work. We have to work on recruitment, retention, staffing, equipment, and things that don't work, put them away. We have a $100,000 camera system at the Granville County Sheriff's Office has. It's called a Faro imaging system. It's a 3D software to crime scene reconstruction, right? It's been used once, but we paid $100,000 for it. Now the licenses had expired. No one knows except one deputy how to make that system work. We have to start incorporating things that make us better. We have to cross-train people. We have to have responders. I want deputies to be tactical medics. So if there's an accident and EMS hasn't got there, yeah, life-saving steps are critical, but the care to get them to where we need to sustain people and sustain life is different. So there are no defibrillators in vehicles. The supervisor has a defibrillator. So a deputy stops somebody in a cardiac arrest, you can pump on their chest all day, but it's going to be incumbent to have a defibrillator there. So you can set it in place. You can take care of the breathing apparatus of the AED system, and it makes us better. So those are the things we're going to do in the first 100 days and reorganize how things are. It is true there has not been a fair, balanced promotional system. So we're going to step back, evaluate where people are, and we're going to put people where they're best needed. So the ones that may have been overlooked that are qualified for things, we're going to maybe look at doing some other promotional systems. I'm going to restructure we're too top heavy. There's about 11 lieutenants right now. I think that's too many. We got to restructure the school resource officer program. We're going to have to take into account the reserve force, and that's what we're going to call it, our reserve officer force, because we have reserve deputies and we hold their certifications, but we're not putting them to work. So you're going to have some skin in the game. So we're going to change the operating hours of the sheriff's department. We're going to change it to where citizens have the ability to go to the sheriff's office on a Saturday from 10 to 6 or something like that to take care of their business so they don't have to take off work. We're going to look at the court systems. Why we can't have night court. But we can have situations to where we can build and not hurt staff. I don't want to take vacation to go take care of a ticket or take care of something. So we got to, envision this thing in a different manner. And lastly, we're just going to put more boots on the ground. Every deputy is going to have their business cards with my number on the back. They're going to have to go out and speak to every business owner. When a business owner closes and has to take money to the bank, we need deputies there. So when you're in Wilton and Wilton Pizzeria closes down, or the gas station closes, the 66 closes, General Dollar closes, we need deputies in that area. Hey, just to check by, hey, you guys okay, right? So we got to imagine and do things different. Stovall, Tolo Kill, same thing. There's a satellite office in Stovall and Tolo Kill that's not being utilized. Why not? I don't need to see 6 of my deputies sitting at Speedy's or George's eating dinner. I don't need to see that. Unless they're off duty and have been working together at a ball game or something like that, I need to see them in their areas. Their managers need to see them in their areas. Then we already started a conversation with the governor's highway safety. I'm looking at grant funding. I want to start a motorcycle patrol unit here. We want to make sure that the interdiction is done differently. Interdiction is great. I want to train our staff, and this is 100 days. So we're going to do a lot in 100 days. We have a comprehensive plan that we've already mapped out. And it's just taking the management to say, this is what we're going to do. And we have to be committed to doing it, not just talking about it. And that's what we're going to do. 100 days. Not 90. 100.
Yeah, there you go. Again, Robert Fountain, Democratic candidate for Granville County Sheriff, joins us here on our Decision 2022, part of our local talk program here on Next Door Radio. These last couple minutes, this is the last question I have for you, sir. We'd like to open up the floor. There's no question on the table. There's none of that, but it opens up the floor for take about 2 minutes to kind of give free range of anything you would like to talk about.
I want to make sure that the taxpayers of Granville County receive the service that they pay for. And I want to start building relationships with the mom and pop shops and these community partnerships. So we have a couple businesses that do decals in this community. We have a couple businesses that can order clothes and do embroidery work. We want to start making sure our tax dollars are here in this county. We want to make sure that our service is increased. We want to make sure that our jail is not full of our residents. So we want to be proactive in getting things done. If we're going to house inmates, I want them to be federal inmates, because those federal inmates created a revenue system to help pay for that $20 million facility over there. So we have to look at other strategies. I've talked to it. This is a new one, too, actually. I want to start an automotive repair program at the jail, because that will give these guys some stuff they could do to help work on vehicles. Say if we got a vehicle that's down and we can get these guys to help the maintenance of those vehicles. It gives them a working component, because if you ride up Lewis Street, you'll see that Black's Tire Service and the other places are looking for mechanics. So if we can work on partnerships to make these guys not come back, to where they can have a living wage and give them something to do. And just work with like Food Line Distribution Center has a program to where these guys can do things. So you got a guy, you put him in jail for child support, right? But he's supposed to work on weekends. How is he going to pay his child support? We continue to put him in the arrears. We have to say, okay, here's a GPS tracking system. You go to work, and then you come back. So there are nonviolent people that are out there for reasons which are beyond their control. We just went through a pandemic. So if you lost your job due to a pandemic, but you're trying to work, but you're in arrears, why should I get you locked up when you can't work and pay for you and take care of your kids? It's another burden that the taxpayers are going to incur. So we have to look at things from a different approach. But the automotive, culinary arts, things that we need to do to take the burden off the taxpayers. The canteen services are at the jail system, another thing that we need to take control of. So there's a lot to do. We just want to make sure that we're doing it the right way. I want to listen to the community. I want to engage the community. I want to make our community safe. And again, I learn and listen from everybody. And that's what we're about. So we want people to come check us out. Any events that we have, you can call me, 919-464-9880. You can check out the website, www.fountain2022.com. Or you can see me on Facebook, or you can catch me on Next Door Radio with Trey Snide and Next Door Radio.
There you go. Mr. Fountain, we appreciate you very much for coming in, being open, being honest, and for what you do for the community as well. We appreciate you very much. Again, Robert Fountain, Democratic candidate for Granville County Sheriff, joined us here on our local talk program and Decision 2022. Until next time, God bless. We'll see you later.